I'm sitting in the dark now. The TV is off. The glow of the streetlights outside is filtering in through the curtains, casting long, ominous shadows across the room. There's something suffocating about the silence. Something about it that's crawling under my skin. I never imagined I'd be here, feeling this way. And all because of a conversation I never expected to have. It wasn't supposed to be like this. 3 months ago, Sarah came into my life like a gust of fresh air. After years of failed relationships, disappointments, and wondering if I was even capable of love anymore, Sarah felt like the answer. The one. She was smart, funny, kind, and deep. She challenged me in ways no one else had. I was so sure that this was it. But last night changed everything. It's almost funny how one conversation can flip your world upside down. One moment you're lying in bed, holding someone you think you know inside out. And the next moment they're a stranger. A stranger with a past that casts a shadow so dark. You don't know if you can find the light again. We were sitting on the couch, like we do most nights after work. I was scrolling through my phone, half paying attention to the show on TV. She was leaning against me, silent. And then out of nowhere, she said those 5 words that made my heart sink. I need to tell you something. I remember the exact way her voice trembled, the way her fingers dug into the fabric of the couch. My heart started racing before she even spoke again, and I didn't know why. It was like my body knew what was coming before my brain did. What is it? I asked, trying to sound calm, but there was this gnawing sensation in my gut, this instinct that something was very, very wrong. Her eyes didn't meet mine. Instead, they focused on the floor. She started talking about her past. Things I knew bits and pieces about, but had never heard the full story. She grew up in a strict religious household, Jehovah's Witnesses. She had always made it sound like a footnote, a thing she left behind long ago. But now she was describing it in detail. The control, the guilt, the constant pressure to conform to a way of life that didn't make sense to her. I couldn't do anything, she whispered. Not without their approval. I wasn't allowed to think for myself. I nodded, trying to show I was listening. But I didn't understand why she was telling me this now. Then her voice grew quieter. My first sexual experience. It wasn't what I thought it was. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I didn't know where she was going with this, but I felt my heart rate spike. Her hands were shaking now, her voice cracking as she continued. I was 18. He was 27, and he was married. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. My mind was racing, struggling to keep up with her confession. He groomed me, she said, her voice shaking. He made me believe that what we were doing was normal. I was so naive. I didn't know. And by the time I realized what had happened, it was too late. My life was already... She trailed off, and I wanted to say something, to comfort her, but I couldn't find the words. My thoughts were a mess. I was horrified. I felt sick. But that wasn't the worst of it. I have to tell you something else, she said, her voice breaking as fresh tears filled her eyes. She was crying now, her body trembling beside me. My chest tightened, and I could barely hear her through the pounding in my ears. I cheated, she finally admitted. Those 2 words shattered everything. Cheated. It hit me like a physical blow. For a split second, I thought maybe I hadn't heard her right. But no, she said it again, as if confirming my worst fear. "I cheated," she repeated, choking on her words. "It was a long time ago, before we met. But I can't keep this from you. I cheated." My body went numb. I was frozen, unable to process what she was saying. I've always been clear about one thing in relationships. I don't tolerate cheating. It's not just a rule for me. It's a core belief. Once that trust is broken, there's no way to get it back. I've seen it happen to my friends, to my family. I've seen the destruction it leaves behind, and I promised myself I'd never be the one standing in those shoes. But here I was, and it was Sarah, the woman I thought I could build my life with, who had just confessed to doing the one thing I could never forgive. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely audible. It was all I could manage. Just that one word, because my mind couldn't form anything else. She looked at me, her eyes red, her face streaked with tears. She looked so broken, so fragile. And for a second, I felt a surge of protectiveness. But it was quickly drowned out by the anger, the betrayal. "It was a bad relationship," she sobbed. "I was with him for 3 years. He was controlling, manipulative. He wasn't good to me. And I was so lost. I wasn't myself. I didn't know who I was." Her words felt like knives, cutting deeper with every syllable. "I didn't cheat because I wanted to hurt him," she continued. "I didn't even do it because I wanted someone else. I did it because I was broken, because I didn't know how to feel anything." Her voice cracked again, and she broke down into sobs. Her entire body started shaking. But I just sat there cold. No, for the first time, I couldn't look at her. I stared straight ahead, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts, emotions, fears. I asked her if she had cheated on anyone else. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. I needed to know. "No," she said immediately, her voice desperate. "No, never. It was just that one time. I swear. I've never done it since. I've changed. I'm not the same person I was back then." She was pleading now, begging me to believe her. But could I? Could I really trust her? I had always told myself that once someone cheats, that's it. No second chances. No, maybe they'll change. But now that I was here living through it, I wasn't so sure. I was torn between the values I'd held onto for so long and the woman I thought I knew. The woman sitting in front of me, breaking down as she begged for forgiveness for a mistake she made long before I came into her life. I had never imagined this kind of betrayal would feel this confusing. "I'm not that person anymore," she whispered. "I've worked so hard to change. I've had other relationships since then and I've never cheated. Not once. And I would never cheat on you." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she reached out for me, but I pulled away instinctively. It hurt. It hurt to see her like this, but it hurt even more to think about what she had done. Even if it wasn't to me, even if it was years ago, it didn't matter. The image was in my mind now, her with someone else while she was supposed to be with her boyfriend. And that image wasn't going away. "I don't know what to say," I finally admitted. My voice sounded hollow even to me. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I can only be honest with you now. I don't want any secrets between us." Her words were sincere, I could tell, but that didn't make it any easier. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my mind spinning in circles. She was still crying, but more quietly now, her body slumped in defeat. She knew I needed space, and for once, she wasn't trying to fill the silence with explanations or apologies. And yet, despite everything, despite the betrayal, the confusion, the anger, I didn't ask her to leave. Not right away. I just sat there, staring at the wall, listening to the rain, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. When I finally spoke again, my voice sounded foreign to me, distant. "I need some time," I said. "I need space." She didn't argue. She didn't try to plead her case again. She just nodded, her face pale and wet with tears. She grabbed her things quietly, almost too quietly, like she was trying not to disturb me any further. When she reached the door, she turned back to look at me one last time, her eyes filled with pain, with regret. And then she was gone. The door clicked shut softly behind her, leaving me alone in the dark, with nothing but the ticking of the clock and the sound of the rain. It's been hours since she left. Maybe more than that, I don't know. Time has lost all meanings. The apartment feels colder now, emptier. I keep replaying the conversation in my head, over and over, like a broken record. Her voice, her tears, her confession. She cheated. That's the thing I can't get past. It's stuck in my brain like a splinter, a tiny, nagging wound that won't heal. But then there's the other part, the part where she's remorseful, where she's changed, where she's telling me the truth now because she doesn't want to lie. That part keeps tugging at me, making me question everything I thought I knew about relationships, about trust, about forgiveness. Do people change? Can I forgive her for something she did long before I even came into her life? Or will this always be in the back of my mind, haunting me, gnawing at me every time we have a fight, every time we hit a rough patch? I don't know. I don't have the answers. All I know is that the woman I thought I knew just became a complete stranger to me. And now I don't know how to find my way back.